99X. It's Barnes, Leslie, the Morning X. The kids probably not in school right now, but when they come back, Leslie, they're going to have a nice little surprise in, at least in Marietta City Schools and coming to other schools very soon, and that will be no cell phones.
No cell phones. We need to get into this.
This is a big deal and kind of a landmark move that I bet a lot of schools are going to follow. We've got the Superintendent of Marietta City Schools, Grant Rivera. Hey, Grant, how are you?
Good morning. Good to be with you.
Thanks for coming on the show. I know you have much more important things to do than mess with this, but we want to hear about it. Let's start back to where this all began. What, kind of kicked this into action?
What prompted this?
Anybody who's walked in and out of a school or in and out of a classroom anytime in the last 5, 6, 7 years see that kids do less talking, oftentimes in the hallways and at lunch, and more time staring at their phone.
Yep.
And there's just been more and more conversation recently, and I think a greater degree of acceptance that these phones are bad. And the reality is that you've got some of the smartest people in the world trying to suck people in through algorithms into their phone. And if we as adults can't control the cell phones, what hopes do we have, in our case in Marietta, for school-age kids to be able to resist that temptation?
Now, I know that you discuss this with parents, obviously, and staff, but I also understand you got input from students. What were they saying?
Yeah, and listen, one of those students happens to be my own sixth grader who doesn't have a phone or a smartwatch, but isn't a huge fan of this. So I think the kids, it's interesting. If you ask the kids, do you like it? They're going to say no. When we ask the kids, do you think it will help you do better in class? They say absolutely. So I think the kids are the first to acknowledge that they like it. They prefer to have a cell phone in their hand, but they also recognize that they're super distracted in school.
Another vote was 7-0. And what was the kickback from parents? Was it split evenly? Was it one way or the other?
Yeah, Barnes, this is really interesting and candidly surprising for me. So our Board of Education voted unanimously to approve moving forward with this vision around limiting cell phones and smartwatches for kids during the school day through these specialized pouches made by a company called Yonder.
Yep.
What's interesting is that over the last 2 months, we have been soliciting feedback and talking with families and staff and students, and there has not been a single staff member or a single parent in middle grades in Marietta who said, don't move forward with cell phones. There was some feedback around including smartwatches as part of this because people feel like it's differently. Candidly, I unapologetically do not think it's different.
I agree.
But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought, kind of to the point of your question, that it would be a little bit more split. It wasn't. And I think there were so many, I know there were so many families who would say to me, like, thanks for taking the lead on this because my kid wants a phone and I don't want to give them one. And now you've allowed me to delay that further because they don't need it during school.
We're talking to Grant Rivera. Grant, thank you for being here, Superintendent of Marietta City Schools. The other thing as well is, going back to when we were all in high school or grade school or whatever, we had interactions with our friends. We actually had conversations. And the whole cell phone situation now, I think it limits that because you become addicted to this device that's in your hand.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's the challenge, right? We walk into a middle school cafeteria and the kids are not interacting and engaging and candidly just developing normal social skills because their interaction is with a phone. And I think for us, we recognize the importance of kids talking with one another, not just in the cafeteria or in hallways, but also in the last 5 minutes of class. Let's encourage kids to be kids and take advantage of that social interaction.
Playing devil's advocate, I'm trying to think of what people could bark at, what about emergency situations or what about special needs kids who may need that watch to alert them to do their whatever or to, things like that. Are there situations where you would allow it? And that would be weird.
So over the last 2 months, as we shared this with our community and got feedback, the single most important question that I've gotten is really around safety and security of students. If we have an active shooter, how will I be able to reach my child? And I think it's important for us to acknowledge, if you talk to first responders and people who are experts in this space, they're going to say, we don't want a child on a cell phone during an active shooter. They don't want a child drawing more attention to a classroom by phones ringing or being on the phone. They want people paying attention to the directives of a teacher or a first responder. But let's also acknowledge, though, that Mama Bear and Papa Bear don't care. They want to be able to reach their kid in the event of an emergency. So what we have done, which candidly is different than almost any other school that I'm aware of in the country, is that we are giving teachers access to the special magnets that will unlock the pouches. We are actually securing. They almost look like hotel safes, if you will. They're mounted to the wall. We're putting a box in each classroom with a magnet. So therefore, in the event of an emergency, a teacher has the ability within a minute or two of unlocking every pouch in the classroom. So therefore, we can address that issue. Do I think is it what I want kids doing in the event of an emergency? Not really. But do I acknowledge that as a real dynamic for families? Absolutely.
You know, there's been so much research about excessive cell phone use and how it can affect, mental health and just any sort of development. Have you started seeing this happening around the country as far as banning cell phones from schools?
So it's been interesting. In recent months, candidly recent weeks, we see more and more school districts around the country saying they too are going to, quote, ban cell phones. I think what's interesting, though, and this is where this gets a little bit controversial, is we in Marietta are going to have students when they come to school, lock their cell phones and their smartwatches in a secure pouch that gets locked in the morning and unlocked in the afternoon. That's very different than saying to families and to kids, we ban cell phones from coming on campus. And there's no way that we're really going to enforce it. And I think that's what's happened, right? Like Marietta candidly had a ban of cell phones for the last couple of years. And we said, hey, kids, you can't have your cell phones out in class. Walk into a classroom, what do you see? Cell phones.
Yeah,
of course.
The rules are only as good as we enforce them. So I think it's going to be interesting how districts approach this. We are taking a very candidly intensive and kind of like intentional approach around, you can bring them to school, we're just going to lock them up. That's different than putting a responsibility back on a teacher saying, hey, teacher, go enforce a kid who has a cell phone that they shouldn't have, but they brought anyway.
Did anyone think about gamifying it? So some sort of thing where, and I'm being serious, where you have, because now that I have the visual of these boxes in the classroom, where, you put it in there at a certain time and you accrue so many whatevers until you get it back. So the longer it's in there, you accrue more.
So there's a prize involved?
You take that to the gift shop and you get, little Timmy gets an extra whatever.
I got an idea, Leslie. I think Barnes should come on as the principal of our middle school.
I'm all about it.
Barnes is going to enlist like a prize system. I will say this, Grant.
Wait, you guys just brushed past my idea? That was a brilliant idea.
I do like your idea.
You've got the Yonder bags. You've got now the kids are happy instead of pissed off that their thing is in the box. Okay, I'm done.
Grant has nothing to say about your idea. I do want to say that one time my phone was put in one of those Yonder bags walking into a Jack White concert. I got to admit, Grant, it was tough not having the phone for the entire show.
Tough.
Well, so it's interesting. Two thoughts there. So when I was doing these student meetings in the last couple of weeks, I would ask the kid, hey, can I demo how this pouch works by locking your phone up? And I'd have a 7th grader say to me, are you sure you can unlock it? Like, can I get my phone back? So, there is a little bit of separation anxiety and FOMO, but candidly, that's exactly what we want.
I know.
And I just think about it. And I listen, I'm 49 years old, and there are times where I have a difficult time putting my phone off to the side, and I think about what that means for a 13-year-old. And I have hope that these kids will be more present and how that will change everything for them.
I was traumatized at the Masters. Honestly, people thought I was kidding that we were with, that I had to put my phone in that bag for the whole day.
You were.
Look, I'm no surgeon, but I do need to make a few calls. I don't know. I was almost hyperventilating with walking away from that little hut where you leave your phone. I'm like, but, and they're like, dude, just let it go. So I can imagine I'm pretty much like a 6th grader. So it's similar feeling, I'm sure, with these guys. Their phone is like, that is their world.
Well, Barnes, if you look at the national research, it said the average middle schooler gets 237 notifications a day.
Oh, yeah. I agree with this. I'm just saying I bet they're freaking.
And I don't even get 237 notifications a day. Maybe you do if you're a middle schooler, but that's a lot of interruptions. We can leave that sucker in a tent, or we can leave it in a pouch.
Grant, you're like the cool superintendent. I don't think our superintendent when I was in school was cool. No.
But I will say, I have 2 daughters, and the amount of selfies taken in a minute is like 60 notifications to someone who they've sent, just going like making the frown face or whatever it is. But I can't wait to check in with you after this gets rolling and here, because I think it's a great idea. So Marietta City School, schools, this where Grant is, he's the superintendent.
Congrats.
They are shutting it out. No more phones from 6th grade through what?
8th grade.
6th through 8th. All right. Well, thanks for coming on and telling us about it, because I think it's a big deal.
Thank you, Grant.
Good to be
Thank
with
you.
you. Thanks so much.
This is the Morning X. It is 99X.